Of the $2.1 trillion per year spent on healthcare, 95% of that money is spent on diseases that have already occurred. Reimbursements occur to treat people as they fall off the cliff rather than stopping them from jumping. A cross-sectional survey of over 55,000 U.S. physicians showed that less than 25% of obese patients received any counseling with regards to diet to help treat their obesity. In an attempt to discover what barriers kept physicians from advising more of their patients on lifestyle, a study surveyed over 20,000 physicians and found that the top 3 reasons were a lack of knowledge, a lack of time, and a lack of confidence. We feel that if physicians were aware of the evidence available and understood the magnitude of the effect, they would feel confident sharing about dietary interventions with their patients and would take the time to do so. The CDC has put out some really good maps starting in 1994 of the obesity and the diabetes prevalence in the U.S. And as it gets darker, we're getting more obese and we're getting more diabetes. And as you can see here, there's a corresponding relationship to where the obesity is occurring and where the diabetes is occurring. And in 2008, 1/2 of the U.S. is over 26% obese. And 13 states that people have a prevalence of 9% diabetes. The last 100 years has been hard on our hearts. In this graph, it shows an 8-fold increase in cardiac-related deaths. What has caused the increase in obesity, diabetes, and heart disease? Dr. Neal Barnard, an endocrinologist and researcher from George Washington University, explains the trends in diet.
Meat consumption has gone up. This is the last 100 years. If you look at 1909, the average American in a year's time consumed about 150 pounds of meat in a year's time, a little bit less. But as of about a century later, we were 50 pounds higher than that. Now, if we break it down, red meat has gone up and down and up and down. It really hasn't increased. In fact, it's declined a little bit over a century ago. But we have more than made up for it with chicken. Americans now eat 1 million chickens per hour. Back in 1909, it took a whole year to get through not even 4 pounds of cheese per person. But somewhere right around 1960 or 1970, people figured out how to connect your home telephone to a restaurant with a car outside ready to bring a cheese pizza over to you. And pizza was a vehicle for delivering cheese to your door. And school lunches discovered that if they served a lot of cheese, kids would eat it. And so, actually, as a matter of fact, as of 2009, cheese consumption is about 33 pounds per person per year. If you look at sugar, that blue line in the middle is cane sugar and beet sugar. And you see the trend? It's falling, right? But we're more than making up for it with high fructose corn syrup. That's the green line. And you put it all together, you get that red line at the top. So we're eating about 30 pounds more sugar every person every year than we were before.
Compared to 100 years ago, the average American consumes 50 pounds more meat, 30 pounds more cheese, and 30 pounds more sugar per year per person. This leads to obesity. Obesity leads to insulin resistance. Insulin resistance eventually leads to diabetes. Dr. Barnard looks at trends in obesity and diabetes in Japan as they adopted the American diet.
What's the dietary staple in Japan? What do they eat? Rice, huge amounts of rice. Well, rice is really high in carbohydrate, but if you look at the diabetes prevalence in Japan in adults over the age of 40, prior to 1980, it was 1 to 5%. Pretty rare. They were thinner than we were. They lived longer than we do, and yet they were eating a very, very high carbohydrate diet. But what happened in Japan right around that time? Yeah, that came in. And so did that. And so did that. And these are not traditional Japanese foods. And when you look at what happened to the Japanese diet, fat content went up and up and up and up. It's still not to where we are here in America. But it went up. And carbohydrate, starchy foods, rice and noodles, started being forgotten because burgers, steak, cheese, milk was pushing them off the plate. And so what happened? Well, when you put people on the scale, the top line is overweight, the bottom line is obesity. Not a lot of obesity yet, but the trend in increasing weight is very clear. So prior to 1980, diabetes was 1 to 5%, but by 1990 it was about 11 to 12% in 10 years' time. Now, did genes change? No, it wasn't a genetic thing. What changed was diet. Diabetes, from the Centers for Disease Control, 1 in 3 kids born in the year 2000 is going to develop diabetes. This is where we're going. Among Hispanics, the lifetime risk is about 45% for men, over 50% for women. What we're condemning the next generation to, if it's true, if what the CDC predicts really comes to pass. You've heard people say that this generation is going to be the first one to live shorter than their parents. You know what I'm talking about? Well, some of them are going to live a lot shorter than their parents, because statistics show that a person who is diagnosed with diabetes at age 40, a man loses almost 12 years of life. A woman loses more than 14. We're not talking about small things. We're talking about a major revolution in our health in exactly the wrong direction.
In the Second Adventist Health Study, 97,000 Seventh-day Adventists from across North America were enrolled from 2002 to 2006. About half of the population is vegetarian, and the other half is not. This presents an ideal situation where the effect of diet on chronic disease can be researched. In this cross-sectional study, published in 2009, 61,000 of the Adventist Health Study 2 participants were evaluated in regards to diet, weight, and diabetes status. Here can be seen the effect of diet on body mass index. The non-vegetarian BMI average is 28.8, which is near obesity, whereas the vegan is 23.6, which is near the ideal body weight. Here you can see the effect of diet on the prevalence of diabetes. The prevalence of diabetes is over 60% less in vegans than in the non-vegetarians.